Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Anderson. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of California. The Northern District of California encompasses 15 counties in Northern California. This office, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of California, has the responsibility of enforcing federal law within the Northern District. We're here this afternoon to make a charging announcement. We're announcing public corruption charges against two defendants. First defendant, Mohammed Nuru, age 57, of San Francisco, California. Nuru is the director of the Department of Public Works in San Francisco. The Department of Public Works in San Francisco has responsibility for care, construction, maintenance of San Francisco's streets, sewers, sidewalks, city-owned buildings, trees, other city infrastructure. The Department of Public Works has an annual budget of approximately $500 million. In addition, Mr. Nuru is the chairman of the board of the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority, which has responsibility for the design, construction, maintenance of the Trans-Bay Transit Center and associated developments. This, as the group will well know, is a multi-billion-dollar development. Mr. Nuru is one of the highest-ranking employees in San Francisco. He is entrusted with broad contracting authority on behalf of the citizens of San Francisco. Second defendant is Nick James Bovis, age 56, of Burlingame, California. Mr. Bovis is a restaurateur. He owns Lefty O'Doul's, also known as Lefty's Ballpark Buffet, Gold Coast Lounge, Broadway Grill. Both defendants are charged in a complaint with honest services wire fraud in violation of Title 18 United States Code, Section 1343 and 1346. These filed charges have a statutory maximum penalty of 20 years imprisonment. The charges in that complaint are being unsealed today. Copies will be made available to all of the press here in the room. Bovis was arrested yesterday, made his initial appearance in court today at 12:30, was released on a $2 million bond. His next court appearance will be on February 6th at 11:30 a.m. Nuru is also charged in a second complaint with a violation of Title 18 United States Code, Section 1001. That second complaint arises out of the circumstances occurring in this past week. Mr. Nuru was initially arrested on January 21st, 1 week ago, and expressed his desire to cooperate with the investigation. He was released to FBI custody to facilitate his cooperation. He was admonished by the court and by the FBI not to tamper or obstruct the investigation, not to disclose the investigation, not to disclose his cooperation with the investigation. Nuru promised to obey those admonishments. Nuru violated those admonishments. Nuru was, again yesterday, interviewed. He falsely denied disclosing the investigation, his cooperation with the investigation, and so he was taken back into custody yesterday on a new complaint, again alleging a violation of Title 18 United States Code, Section 1001. That charge carries a statutory maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment. Nuru appeared again today in court at 12:30 p.m. He was released, this time on a $2 million bond. His court appearance is also set for February 6th at 11:30 a.m. I want to emphasize that the charges contained in the complaint are merely allegations and not proof. The defendants are presumed to be innocent. That presumption of innocence, to which we are all entitled, will obtain unless or until those charges are proved beyond any reasonable doubt. Joining me up here at the press conference, first of all, I want to mention and thank Mr. Jack Bennett, the special agent in charge of the FBI field office here in San Francisco, and in a few minutes, Mr. Bennett will also have comments. Also, Sid Patel, one of the special agent supervisors, group supervisors here in San Francisco, and it was a squad working under Mr. Patel that led this investigation. From my office, Will Frenzen, the chief of the Corporate Fraud Strike Force, Scott Joyner, the AUSA, with primary responsibility for the work that I'm describing here today. As members of the Corporate Fraud Strike Force and chief of the Corporate Fraud Strike Force, Mr. Joyner, Mr. Frenzen are leading our office in the investigation of white-collar crime using all forms of investigative tools provided to us by Congress, including undercovers, wiretaps, surveillance, anything that we can use to effectively investigate and then ultimately prosecute white-collar crime. Under federal law, the public has a right to honest services from public officials. A scheme or artifice to defraud the public of its right to those honest services violates federal law. Under federal law, it is the scheme that is the violation, and the scheme need not be consummated in order for there to be a violation of federal law. The complaint alleges 5 schemes, and I'll briefly describe those schemes to you. The conduct described in the complaint played out over the years, primarily over the years 2018 and 2019. First scheme, as described in the complaint, this is the airport scheme. The airport scheme focuses on events occurring with regard to SFO, and in particular, the lease of restaurant space at SFO. That restaurant space is controlled by a 5-person airport commission, and the award of such space is supposed to be done in a fair and competitive bidding process for the benefit of the public. Any attempt to influence that process is unlawful. The complaint alleges that Nuru and Bovis schemed to bribe an airport commissioner. There was a meeting in February 2018 described in the complaint in which there was an envelope of cash. The scheme involved the payment of a $5,000 bribe and also the provision of travel. That scheme was not consummated. That bribe was not paid. Second scheme, building development project scheme. Building development project scheme, as alleged in the complaint, involves a billionaire developer from China. That billionaire developer in China provided to Nuru travel, lodging, high-end liquor, other gifts and benefits. As described in paragraph 142 of the complaint, Nuru was provided with a bottle of wine worth $2,070. As described in footnote 13 of the complaint, such gifts are required to be disclosed on a Form 700 and were not disclosed by Nuru, but instead were concealed by Nuru in keeping with the scheme as alleged in the complaint. The complaint alleges that Nuru manipulated the building permit and inspection process for the billionaire developer in China. Scheme number 3, Transbay Transit Center scheme. The Transbay Transit Center scheme involves commercial lease rights at the Transbay Transit Center. This is also an award of valuable entitlements that is supposed to be awarded through a fair and competitive process, a points process as described in the complaint. And as described in the complaint, Nuru intervened in that process for the benefit of Bovis. Fourth scheme, homeless shelter and public restroom scheme. As this group well knows, homelessness, street defecation, is profoundly impacting San Francisco. This group is reporting on the phenomenon weekly, perhaps daily. In 2018, as described in the complaint, there was a public process for new public restrooms, new homeless shelters. As alleged in the complaint, behind the scenes, Nuru is providing Bovis with inside information and manipulating the specifications to give Bovis an unfair advantage in the awarding of the contract for those public restrooms and homeless shelters. Fifth scheme, the Stonyford Vacation Home Scheme. This scheme involves the personal vacation home of Nuru in Colusa County, California, approximately 3.5 hours from San Francisco. Contractors doing work for the city of San Francisco provided Nuru, as alleged in the complaint, with free and discounted labor, materials, and a John Deere tractor. I focused my comments today on the allegations of the complaint. The investigation continues. In sum, the complaint alleges corruption pouring into San Francisco from around the world. The complaint alleges corruption, bribery, side deals by one of San Francisco's highest-ranking public employees. Federal law gives the citizens of San Francisco a right to honest services from their public officials. San Francisco has been betrayed, as alleged in the complaint. I'm going to ask Mr. Bennett to make comments, and then either one of us will be available to answer your questions.
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon. I'm John Bennett. I'm the Special Agent in charge of FBI San Francisco, and I'll keep my remarks brief today. Today's announcement highlights the FBI's priority to investigate allegations of public corruption. We serve as an independent investigative agency and operate independent of political influence. If a federal law is violated, the FBI will pursue the investigation and bring the perpetrators to justice, no matter who they are, whatever their position may be, or who they may know. Government employees are entrusted and expected to protect the best interest of American public with integrity. And integrity is defined as doing the right thing when nobody's looking. When that trust is betrayed, the security and stability of our government is put at risk. Corruption, big or small, tears at the foundation and the fabric of our democracy, and no level of corruption should be tolerated or accepted. The FBI will continue to investigate and hold accountable any public official who utilizes their position for personal gain. We encourage anyone who may have information about corruption to come forward and report it. This information is vital to the FBI work and assists us in protecting the American people. Thank you. Dave.
Okay, we'll take questions now, and you can direct your questions either to me or to Mr. Bennett.
Joe Fitzgerald Rodriguez with the San Francisco Examiner. Can either of you confirm a raid on the offices of Walter Wong, a known permit expediter, this morning?
So we are not in a position today to confirm any of the other law enforcement actions that may or may not be underway. And so I don't have any information in response to your question, Joe.
Melanie Woodrow from ABC 7 News. Can you speak to whether or not there was an informant or how the FBI became aware?
As you'll see in the complaint, there was an undercover operation, surveillances, wiretaps. This is, as you might imagine, the kind of conduct as alleged in the complaint that does not occur in an open and transparent way. So a variety of investigative techniques were undertaken by the FBI and by prosecutors in my office to pursue the investigation.
Is there any connection, Mark Matthews,
Sorry. Yep.
Hi there, Doug Sovereign, KCBS Radio. Could you just elaborate on that second charge against Mohammed Nuru? Was it that he is it false statements? What led to him being rearrested? What is he actually accused of in that second instance?
So a week ago on January 21st, Nuru was taken into custody and presented to the magistrate. And at that time he was released, and he was released back to FBI custody. That occurred because Nuru indicated that he wanted to cooperate covertly with the investigation, and he was given an opportunity to do that. Now, one of the conditions of that cooperation release is that he actually cooperate and that he not disclose the existence of the investigation or the existence of his cooperation to any other person. And this was explained to him, and he agreed to this. Then, over the course of the ensuing week, we became aware, the FBI became aware, that Nuru was not abiding by those obligations, that Nuru was talking to others about this investigation. So yesterday he was given an opportunity to speak to that, and he lied to the FBI, falsely claiming that he had abided by the conditions of his release. That lie to the FBI is a violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 1001, and that's what resulted in his rearrest yesterday, and then his presentment today and the arraignment on the new complaint today for that 1001 violation.
Suggesting that he had said he would either be an informant or wear a wire or something like that, and then renege to some extent?
Complaint doesn't go into that level of detail. I won't add to the complaint. You'll see there the sequence of events that I've described to you. Yeah.
Mark Matthews, NBC there. And, can you give us at least a feel for how broad the investigation is? Obviously, there's some other things happening.
My comments in a charging announcement are focused on the allegations of the complaint. What I'm able to do today is to describe to you what is being unsealed today. Other than noting the fact that the investigation continues, I don't have further information that is disclosable under DOJ policy at this time. I would pick up on one point that Mr. Bennett made about the opportunity for others to cooperate in the investigation. As you'll see in the complaint, all those persons who had a part in the conduct that's described in the complaint are described anonymously in the complaint. Now, of course, I don't have any doubt, but that when they see the complaint, they will have the ability to see themselves in the complaint. And what I would add to Mr. Bennett's comment is they have an opportunity to do the right thing for San Francisco and for all of us. And if they are inclined at this point to do the right thing, they should walk, not run, to the FBI offices and disclose what they know and accept responsibility for what they've done. Or we'll do it the other way.
You said that this has been going on since 2018, or that the investigation focuses on events of 2018, 2019. Has the investigation been going on for that period of time?
I don't think I have anything to add to the complaint in that regard.
Claudia Cowan, Fox News. You talked about the 5 schemes, and you mentioned that the first one with the airport was not consummated. The other 4 were?
So thank you, Claudia, for the question. And I want to make a technical point, which may or may not matter to you, but it is, in terms of understanding that complaint, I think it goes to the point you're making. The scheme that's charged in violation of Section 1343 and 1346 is the airport scheme. The other schemes that are alleged in the complaint are alleged for purposes of showing motive, wrongful intent, MO, absence of mistake. So there's 5 schemes in total. One of them is the charged conduct. The other 4 are charged to show state of mind. So I don't have anything to add to the complaint. The complaint describes what is charged in terms of the conduct that occurred, but the one that's charged is the airport scheme, and then the others in the way that I've described.
Joe again. The folks who Mr. Nuru disclosed the investigation to, they are anonymous in the complaint?
The complaint will use phrases like developer 1, contractor 2, that kind of thing. And you've seen this before in other similar documents.
So, but can you at least describe, are the people who he disclosed it to active people under investigation within the complaint, or are they unrelated to the complaint? I'm sorry, unrelated to the investigation.
So I'm not going to answer any of your questions today, apparently, Joe. Perhaps the sign of a good question.
Hi, John Farinini, Bay Area reporter. How did the FBI come to find out that he was talking to these other people about what happened?
Do you have anything you want to say to that?
Yeah, obviously this is an ongoing investigation, so we are not in a position to divulge that information at this moment. And out of safety for ongoing operations, we're just going to hold there.
Jackson Vanderbeck, NBC Bay Area. Can you tell us why the scheme involving the airport wasn't consummated? Did somebody have cold feet? Can you give us it say in the indictment, or excuse me, in the complaint?
The complaint speaks to that point. I don't have anything to add to the complaint on that point. So I'll just refer you back to the document.
Were the arrests accelerated because Nuru was talking?
Yes.
Joe Eskenazi, Mission Local. Can you go over the maximum penalties involved? The way that I heard you say it, you said that it was a penalty for him to lie to the FBI regarding his disclosure of the investigation, but isn't the disclosure of the investigation a violation of the law as well?
The complaint charges the lie, and the lie carries a statutory maximum penalty of 5 years. The underlying conduct carries a statutory maximum penalty of 20 years, and those penalties under the law have the potential to stack, providing Nuru with a potential statutory maximum penalty of 25 years imprisonment.
So the lying, the crime, or the charge, rather than the disclosure of the investigation of other persons.
The lying is the second charged crime, correct?
Was the $2 million bond release from today only, or was he also released on a bond? Nuru, was he also released on a bond last week, or was he released back to FBI with no bond?
Nuru was not required to execute a bond last week. He was released to FBI custody last week. Today, he was released on the $2 million bond. And both defendants referred to pretrial services. That next appearance date will be for a analysis of the pretrial services report, conditions of security, that kind of thing in the normal course of federal practice.
To what extent did the SFPD help in enforcement actions today and through the last week?
I can ask that. San Francisco was made aware of the investigation yesterday. Due to sensitivities, we wanted to make sure that Chief Scott and his crew had a visibility of what we were doing operationally yesterday, but we kept this pretty close hold.
So San Francisco Police Department officers didn't engage in helping the enforcement actions?
No.
Or yesterday, Friday?
No.
Thanks. That good?
Kevin Durant, NBC, is there a monetary amount that he ended up taking from everyone, from contractors or anyone else, even from the Chinese builders? Is there a number to that?
I don't think we're going to get into the numbers. The complaint's pretty inclusive if you give it a read. However, there are nuances there we're just not going to discuss right now.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. I was going to thanks, sir.